Hey guys, and welcome back to another video on my channel. Just two things before we get into today's video. It is super sunny out here, and this is the only area in my house that's like ready to be filmed in right now, so I kind of have to film right here, but the sun is quite literally beaming down on me, so I don't know what that's going to do for the quality of the video. If it's a little blurry, I do apologize, but there's really nothing else that I can do about it. And also, second thing, I do have a tailbone injury, so if I'm moving around in this video a lot, it's just because I can't find somewhere comfortable. Like right now I'm fine sitting like this, but I know in a couple of minutes it's going to start hurting and I'm going to have to move, so that would be why that will be happening throughout today's video. But anyways, with that all being said, let's get right into today's case. Today we're going to be talking about the Smurl family haunting. Now, the Smurl family was a working class family originally from Pennsylvania. They were devout Catholics, and Jack was a Navy veteran who was now working as a line supervisor in a factory, and his wife Janet would just work these little odd jobs here and there, but her main priority was to be a stay-at-home mom and to stay at home and just look after their four daughters. The four daughters' names were Dawn, Heather, and then they had two twins named Karen and Shannon. They were described as being a very close-knit family. They, for lack of a better word, were just described as being an all-around, like, traditional American family. Again, they were very close, and Janet and Jack were just really devoted to their family and raising their children. Grown up in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and his family's home was completely destroyed by the Hurricane Agnes floods in 1972. At this time, Jack had still been living with his parents, but once the flood happened, I guess Janet and Jack decided that they were going to make the step to move in together, and they were going to rebuild their lives. Now, this kind of got confusing for me because I thought they didn't live together at this point, but I think that they did because they already had two of their daughters. In 1973, Jack, Janet, and Jack's parents, accompanied by the Smurl's four daughters, would all move into a duplex-style home in West Pittston, Pennsylvania, ready to rebuild their lives. And this was like a perfect kind of combination because Jack's family had also obviously lost their home, so they could live on one side, and then Jack and his wife and kids could live on the other side. The house was located on Chase Street, and the family thought that they'd bought in kind of like a fixer-upper, but after being there for just a short period of time, they realized that what they had purchased was much worse than that. The strangeness in the home would really start to take off in 1974 when the family decided to start renovating their home. While renovating, the family would start to notice that a lot of their appliances needed to be replaced and would break a lot more frequently than they should have ever. The electrical wiring in the house was quite a mess, and that needed to be fixed several times. There were weird smells in the home, and also too these weird marks on the wall that would reappear even after the wall was freshly painted. Like Jack would repaint these walls, and then just a couple minutes later or a little bit later, after the wall had been freshly painted and the mark wasn't there anymore, the mark would then reappear through the new set of paint. Family would start to hear this strange scratching and knocking sounds coming from inside of the walls. There were cold spots all over the house. They started to smell these really foul odors in random places in the home. They would hear footsteps when nobody was walking around or when the room that the footsteps were coming from was empty. Just all of these classic things that happen in most haunted houses, they started to notice were happening now in their home. And it wasn't just the Smurls who were witnessing this strangeness coming from their home. Neighbors would say that there were these weird noises that could be heard at all hours of the night coming from the home, and rumors started to circulate around the neighborhood that the people who previously lived in the Smurls duplex were practicing witchcraft or something like that. But the Smurls seemed very happy and content in their new home, and none of the neighbors wanted to ruin that, so nobody mentioned this to them. One night while Jack was just sitting in his living room watching TV trying to relax, all of a sudden the TV would just go up in absolute flames with no explanation. That is just one of the instances of all of this strangeness that was happening inside this family's home. Like, what? That's crazy. Imagine just sitting watching TV and all of a sudden your TV is on fire. Insane. By 1975, things in the home began to progress and get a lot worse, and everybody in the home was feeling quite uncomfortable, but especially their young daughter, Dawn. She was absolutely terrified of her own room. She didn't even want to go in there, let alone sleep in there by herself, and Jack and Janet at first just thought this was normal for a child, but it got to a point where it was like so extreme that they knew that something was up. Like they thought she was having nightmares, but it wasn't that. Finally, her parents sat her down and talked to her, asking, "Why won't you go in your room?" And she told them that there was these really scary people floating around her room, and that they would make faces at her and kind of like taunt her. And after their child told them this is when the haunting would go from like this little innocent kind of thing that was going on that could be avoided to right in your face and absolutely horrific. Whatever was inside of this home seemed to be very intelligent and was targeting the family directly. Like I mentioned, at this point it was getting much worse. Furniture would move around all over the house without anybody touching it. It would just slide across the floor. Beds would slide around the rooms with people still in them, and at one point a sink in the home was completely ripped out of the wall with absolutely no explanation. The family would report these dark shadowy figures following them from room to room, or just seeing them in the hallway, like kind of like taunting them. And Janet herself would say that there was always this dark like cloud of smoke that would follow her from room to room. And again, every single one of the family members had admitted to seeing this strangeness that was happening. After this had been going on for quite some time, all of a sudden the haunting started to take like this really physical turn. The family would start to notice that they were being shoved, scratched. Janet said that she was being pulled at by these invisible hands, and Jack actually claimed to have been pinned down and assaulted in the late hours of the night by an invisible entity. Loud bangs would shake the walls of the home, and these unexplained odors got worse, with the family describing the smell as stinking like decay, and there would be this constant cold draft and sealed off room. What could be most disturbing of all is it seemed like whatever this entity was feeding off of the Smurl's family fear. It was trying to divide them and separate them, and it was picking on them at their most vulnerable time. And these things weren't just happening to Janet and Jack's side of the family, it was also happening to John and Mary, which are Jack's parents, who again lived on the other side of the duplex in the same home. Jack would often take the brunt of most of these attacks. He was attacked several times in the very late hours of the night. Whatever this entity was would pin him down, often putting all of its weight on his chest, making it hard for him to breathe, and he claimed that on several occasions this entity also scratched his skin so deeply and grossly that he had these like huge oozing cuts all over his body. Jack would also claim that he was violently SA'd by whatever this invisible force was on several occasions. He would be ripped around the room, thrown out of the bed, and be left with all of these bruises and scratches that the family could physically see on him. Like he wasn't just feeling them, they were there, and this is when the family noticed that, you know, this was much worse than what they'd ever thought. Janet said that she too was pinned down by whatever this force was, and that it also put all of its weight on her chest, again making it very difficult for her to breathe. She said that she could always feel this constant bad energy around her, and that at one point whatever this entity was had yanked her hair so hard that it had actually knocked her over. The kids would hear this strange growling in the night. They would always complain about it being as if somebody was sitting on the end of their bed when nobody was there, and they claimed to always see these really creepy dark shadowy figures either watching them or walking around the hallways or their rooms when they were alone, which was terrifying to these kids. And this was also happening on the other side of the duplex where John and Mary lived. John and Mary said that they could hear these loud bangs and scratches coming from the walls, just the exact same as Janet and Jack had heard, and they could also see these dark figures walking around the home and were basically experiencing very similar things. Mary in particular reported that she had been slapped and shoved by this unseen entity at one point or another, and that she specifically would be the one to see these dark shadowy figures walking around their side of the home. John would experience these very serious bouts of illness while in the home, and he was the weakest and the oldest person in the family, and the family saw this as the spirits targeting him because he was the weakest link. In the 1980s, these attacks were so severe that the family knew that they needed to make them stop, and because of this, they turned to their faith. They went to church almost daily, they blessed the house with holy water, they did everything that they could think of, but nothing worked. These attacks would continue, and they would continue to escalate. With no other options, the Smurl family turned to Ed and Lorraine Warren. I'm not really sure how they got into contact with them, but they did, and I would go more into detail about who these people are, but I'm sure if you're watching this video, then you already know, but if you don't, a quick Google search will tell you who they are. But just quickly, Ed and Lorraine Warren are probably the most famous paranormal investigators ever. They have both passed away now, but they worked really famous cases like the Amityville Horror House, as well as Annabelle, and things like that. I actually could do a whole video on them if you guys would be interested in that, but please just let me know. Anyways, Ed and Lorraine Warren would give them the information that they were being haunted by several spirits, and at least one of these spirits was demonic in nature, and this spirit was intent on splitting the Smurl family up. They got priests to come and perform several exorcisms inside of the home, and each time the haunting would stop for a couple days and then it would start up again, worse than before. Eventually, the Smurl family hauntings and their claims became public knowledge, and there were people obviously whispering and talking about them all over their neighborhood, with the neighbors being completely divided. A lot of people believed them, especially because of the rumors that were going on of what was happening in that house before they'd even moved in, but some people thought they were just doing this for attention and publicity. But I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that I do believe that the Smurl family haunting was very, very real. And then years after trying to pray away whatever was going on in their home, by the 1990s, the Smurl family said that the activity within their home had pretty much completely stopped and the house was now quiet. But the Smurl family would always carry this torment of what they had gone through with them for the rest of their lives. To this day, this is one of the most famous haunting cases to date, and actually I do believe The Conjuring: The Last Rite, the movie, came out this month, or it's coming out this month, and it's based on this case. I didn't know that the movie was coming out so close to when I was filming this video, but it is. So if you guys are interested, you should definitely go see that. I haven't, so I can't give you any reviews, but I probably will be going to see it because I love scary movies. But guys, that is going to bring us to the end of today's video. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to comment down below what you'd like to see in my future videos, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on that notification bell so that you don't miss any future videos from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.